Hey guys, welcome to another episode of A to Geeks. Today is a very special day because you've not only got myself, Adam, but we've also got
Eddie, what's up? We're finally on a video together.
X-Men. You may have heard a lot about the X-Men recently in the comic book world and in the movie
Big
world a little
noise.
bit as well.
Big noise. It's been making big noise.
Yeah, it really has. It's been a big topic of conversation, especially in 2019, because essentially, with the powers of X and House of X, there has been huge changes, ridiculous changes. Yeah. So before we get into that, which is we're doing a series of videos that Eddie, you did a video about the animated X-Men series and how that was kind of your gateway to the X-Men series. So this is the next step of this video series, and we're going to be talking about what got started with the X-Men, but like what our journey with the X-Men has been so far to this point. Now, neither of us would say that we were experts in the X-Men, would you say?
No, just a huge fan, essentially. Like
Yeah,
I've looked
same.
things up over the years and whatnot for lack of reading the comics, looked up major events and whatnot, read a couple myself, but mostly just a huge fan from the 90s animated series.
And so that's what we're going to be looking at basically from that point till now. And then the next video in the series is going to be revisiting what we've literally just finished. I saw you were reading it a minute ago.
That's right. I'm on the last one, just finished.
Wicked.
I was on the last one, yeah.
We're going to get to that in the next video. For now, what we want to talk about is the journey of the X-Men from the beginning to now. So, like, we want to build up a sense of importance on just how much has happened to this family, if you want to call it a family, to the
Definitely.
point. Yeah, so that then when you really do realize what changes have been made in the new House and Powers, then you realize how big a deal it is. You've already done the video on the animated series. What else has got you going with the?
Well, I mean, over the course of like starting to get into comics and everything like that, because I got into comics pretty late into my life. Like I always loved the content out of comics. So essentially like, the X-Men, the Spider-Man, DC, Justice League, all that jazz. But what really only got into comics like later on. And when I started getting into comics, I didn't get into X-Men yet, but I was reading up on what was going on with the X-Men. Because it seemed like things were kind of crazy for them for a good period of time. But recently, what I did pick up was something that a lot of people rave about, and for good reason, which is House of M.
Yeah.
So not House of X, House of M. That was amazing. And of course, I had to do a little bit of digging to kind of get into that. And after that, just to see what happens afterwards. But it was well worth it. If there's one thing that you should read, if you just want to kind of get a sense of, because even that kind of segues nicely into this series, I find you kind of get a sense of where everybody's at.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I definitely recommend it.
For me, I would definitely say that House of M was probably the point where I started collecting like religiously for the X-Men. For me in the UK, we used to have like a monthly comic, but it was very restricted. It was like there was one X-Men title, there was one Avengers title, one Spider-Man title, and I collected the X-Men title, and I was very fortunate that was reprints of a very important and very well written period in the history of the X-Men, and that was around the time of Grant Morrison's run, which was like, I think they called it the New X-Men. Professor X had a twin sister called Cassandra Nova. When I started collecting the American imports, there was a million titles to collect, and it was just like, where do I even start? So
that's still how I feel in comic books. I don't know.
Yeah.
About you, but
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing has changed really. But one series that I did collect, and it's quite recent, was the Uncanny X-Men, which was Brian Bendis's relaunch of it about 5 or 6 years ago, I would say. And that was it's just like back to basics, a very tight knit team, a few sprinkle of new mutants that joined the team, and it was just really, really good. So I've been doing some research today to try and piece together a bit of a puzzle to give you guys an understanding of exactly the sort of the size of the X-Men history and their journey up until this point in House and Powers of X. Right. So the official X-Men series was launched in 1963. That wasn't the first time they showed up, but it was the first time they had their very own series. And we all know the origin stories of the X-Men. You know, you've seen the movies and you've probably been referred back through comic book history time and time again. We're not going to go too much into detail about that, but some of the major storylines that have come out since that moment, we are going to talk about. So, Eddie, to start with, the Dark Phoenix saga. Tell me what you know about this event.
So what I know about this essentially is what I've seen in movies and what I saw in the animated series, essentially, plus a little bit of research online. And essentially that is that the Phoenix is a entity from space that takes over Jean Grey in different ways. Most of the time she's evil, and then sometimes she's actually good. I think even there's a point where she's not really good or evil, if I'm not mistaken, and she's kind of just her own beast of a character, and that's Phoenix. The Dark Phoenix storyline, of course, is a popular one because she kind of goes against her X-Men brothers and sisters. And so that's a huge storyline for a lot of people. That's why it's been done over so many times.
Absolutely. And it's a storyline that I don't think I've ever read, but I know all about it.
No, I
because,
never read either.
Yeah, it's referred to so much through the comic books. Look, whenever there's a flashback, we've obviously been schooled, I think, twice now in the two different variations of movies.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the criticism for the latest movie was because it kind of just was the same as the other Dark Phoenix movie we got.
That's what happens when it's by the same person.
So from Dark Phoenix, we move on to another famous storyline, Days of Future Past.
Yes.
What do you know about this storyline?
Essentially, it's pretty much been repeated a few times, but things go bad in the future, but mostly about the Sentinels and whatnot and them taking over. And essentially mutants come from the future to the past to try to save it. And it's one of the best X-Men stories out there. It was told in the movies flawlessly. That was a really good thing. It was kind of the pinnacle of the X-Men movies, really. And it was one of the best stories in the animated series. I remember that fondly. Like that was one of the episodes in one of the series, one of the arcs that made it such a staple for me in my childhood.
And as you said, you nailed it. The movie captured it perfectly, and having the two casts cross over from the movies we watched as kids to the more
it was juicy.
Yeah, so good. So good. So the next one, as I was saying, is Age of Apocalypse. Now, this is a beast. This took the whole of Marvel Comics by storm for about a year, and really reset the whole thing. As far as the X-Men were concerned, I had a friend who was adamant that I had to read Age of Apocalypse, and he lent it to me, and I couldn't get on with it. I found the artwork to be very.
The artwork's very important when it comes to comics.
So important.
It can break a story.
Yeah, it was very cartoony. I don't want to be too disrespectful because the X-Men back then, it fit in beautifully with that era. It was like it was very 80s. Okay. Does that make sense? I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying it didn't pull me in. And
was it like overly ripped heroes and like just body proportions that didn't make sense at all and all that jazz?
Yeah.
They took it to a pretty intense extreme at one point.
It was just, I don't know,
maybe you should go back and read it.
I need to go back and read it. Yeah. There we go. Right, you heard it here first.
It's on camera.
It's on camera. Moving on to the next one, House of M.
Amazing.
Absolutely. I know you're a big fan and that you collected this at the time as well.
Well, I bought the volume later on down the line because I heard so much about it. This is amazing. This book will break your mind in the best ways, and it breaks everybody's mind in actual canon too. So it's just like it's the best way you can break your brain.
Yeah,
that's my endorsement.
It was essentially like they took the entire Marvel universe, put it into a bag, shook it up a little bit, and then just
A
picked
little
out.
bit. They shook it up a lot.
Shook it up a lot. Yeah. That was one of the first Marvel comic books that really pulled me in and made me realize that I needed to take notice, because I was always a DC guy originally.
What happened?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, anyway,
No, Marvel's been pulling me in, honestly. Recently, I've been reading a lot more Marvel than I have DC. Not to put down DC. I've been reading a lot of DC too, but between X-Men and all the other stuff that I'm reading, like Immortal Hulk and all that jazz, like
essentially House of M is the Scarlet Witch, who I just thought it was insane that she created in her own mind, or even physically, this fake world where she was the mother to these two children, because she essentially gave everybody exactly what they wanted. Am I right?
More or less, like it made sense. Everybody was fulfilled.
Yeah,
like everybody had there was some sort of fulfillment across the board.
Yeah, but then actually, when you look at it, that's like one of the biggest lines you could cross to manipulate someone's existence. And so when Logan wakes up, the only thing he's ever wanted was to know everything, and he kind of just snaps out of it one day and realizes he knows everything, including that the Scarlet Witch has altered reality for everyone.
With everything.
Yeah. So I mean, I cannot say more. Like, if you were to read one X-Men book, it would be, for me, House of M. It does help if you have a little bit of background on the Marvel universe, so that you know what's been messed around with. But definitely my go-to. Okay, so they're the sort of the more classic titles and arcs and storylines that have ran over the years. There's probably some we've missed out. Please add to the comments below if you think we've forgotten one of the classics. Undoubtedly,
let us know.
Yeah, please do, because the first thing I'll do is I'll go and check it out. Some of the more recent books that have been out there, A versus X was one where the Avengers and X-Men went head to head. And there was also the more recent Extermination storyline, which is the whole thing we were looking into earlier, because I'm not actually too familiar with recent X-Men.
I heard about it more so. I didn't really look into it that much. I heard that it was kind of falling apart a little bit. But I guess it was kind of falling apart on purpose, as you're about to explain with Extermination.
Absolutely. And when I first heard about Extermination, I kind of just palmed it off as another X-Men story where there's another virus.
A lot of people did.
Yeah, and it didn't take it too seriously, so I didn't check it out. I kind of just let it go. I was still annoyed that Brian Bendis' season had ended. Sorry, his series had ended. So he was the Uncanny X-Men writer from 2013, and I was in love with that series. But then he suddenly left for DC, and they just stopped it. Yeah, so after that, I never read another X-Men book. But you couldn't not avoid what Jonathan Hickman and his team have done with the current crop, which is House of
X and Powers of X.
Powers of X. I'm getting confused with House of M.
No. I thought, honestly, when it first came out, I thought it was a continuation of House of M. I was thinking, like, how does this tie into that? But it actually doesn't at all.
No, it doesn't. It's two series that ran side by side, bi-weekly, I think it was, and
bi-weekly.
Yeah, and it has completely destroyed everything we know of the X-Men. It's gone to new heights, and it really has got people talking, which is why we've decided to do these videos.
Yeah, and I wouldn't just say that it destroyed everything we know about the X-Men. I think that it makes everything we know about the X-Men more worth it. Like the more you know about the X-Men, the more that you hold these characters dear to you, the more that this is gonna mean that much to you, because it's gonna be like getting a wax or some stuff. Like it's just gonna, you're gonna be like, what? Like, it changes so much, but it does it in such an amazing way.
Yeah, I guess that's a short summary of the X-Men. Building up to here, and perhaps in the future we might dive a bit deeper into some of those storylines. But it's been interesting to look back at them in this way,
Yeah, you kind of got to in a sense, like we were saying, it holds a lot more weight if you know a little bit more about the X-Men. So we kind of bridge the gap between your animated knowledge of X-Men and now.
Yes, yeah, and because we all know that the animated series did such an amazing job of replicating some of these
Mhm.
stories, and the movies that have come out since have sort of touch and go. Some of them have been
Yeah.
better than others at telling the stories as well. So if anyone is now heading in to House and Powers and they don't currently have that much of an understanding, hopefully this video has helped them.
Oh, we are continuing along with another X-Men video coming out next, and it's going to be talking about the major changes to the status quo of the X-Men. So, there, like we were just talking about, there's been a lot of changes, a lot of unexpected changes that you're going to want to know about if you're any form of an X-Men fan. So check that out.
Amazing. And don't forget, guys, subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss a video, and we will see you very shortly.
Peace.